started to them. So let's just define enterprise SaaS. Meaning, we know SaaS. There's always a very tacit, implicit association of SaaS being enterprise anyway by default. But let's start with defining like what is enterprise SaaS.
So SaaS is usually considered like a B2B product. It could be like B2C if you buy like a Google a Google Drive subscription. That's also SaaS as a B2C product. In the B2B domain, there are two kinds of like sales motions that go that are there for a SaaS product. So number one is for the SMEs, which is the small and medium enterprises. And when some people say enterprise SaaS, they really mean the like selling to the like Fortune like 500 or the like Fortune like 5,000 companies.
So enterprise has more like they're not small solutions, they're a little bit more complex solutions and targeting larger enterprise.
Exactly.
What are the other types of SaaS? Okay, if that is enterprise SaaS. Are there other types of SaaS?
Yeah, so if you see, you have basically like so just to give you like an example, if you take so you have your SaaS for SMEs, right? And in the Indian context, like if some company wants a software to basically like manage like processes across the company, in the SME world, Zoho is like doing really well, and now they're like trying to go. So there are two types. One is the SME, the other one is the enterprise one.
So now, like I mean, you're probably aware of Sociality. I think they've changed the name now. One of our recent alums. So now, they are building a solution for influencers, right? So it is like for influencers commerce, so to speak. So where like influencers can go and like create their own using the platform, can figure out ways to monetize their knowledge. Do some videos, do some maybe courses or like workshops or anything, and there's a platform. Now, technically it is SaaS.
Yep.
Right, but it's an individual influencer here. It definitely doesn't qualify as enterprise SaaS. But there is business, there is commerce, there is functionality. There are notion of multiple tenants, like each influencer is a tenant here. Influencers have their own user community coming and following them, taking some of their offerings, paying for it. Now, how do we quantify this? Such a solution would come under what kind of SaaS?
So this would be like, because every influencer today is like a business. So you won't really call that. So it will qualify as a B2B, but an SME one, because they won't have like too many employees, and their demands are very different from an SME one. If they were selling the same solution to suppose Netflix or Disney, who actually have a lot of like promotions going on, or like Marvel, who have a lot of like fan club going on, that will be like become enterprise SaaS. So this would be more like an SME.
SME. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Now, are there some? I mean, like, though it's not in the enterprise space, Sociality is doing something very interesting. Are there other startups you've come up with? Recent startups. I know SaaS is not. I mean, it's been around for the last 15, 20 years, at least 15 years now. And so, are there any interesting startups you've come across? Enterprise SaaS startups in recent times?
Yeah. So one of the like recent ones I've been talking with, and which is from like a Tripati Hyderabad alumni. The company name is called Datatron, and the founder is is Harish Dodi. He was like from the 2008 like batch, and what they are like basically like building is that it's basically what we call an application to manage all your ML data models and basically and do things like that. Now, for a small company, a product like that might not really make sense, because they might have only a few like machine learning like models in their company. But for an enterprise where like multiple teams who are doing multiple things, they might have like hundreds or thousands of various like machine learning data models. And the idea is that okay, they need to be like cataloged, they need to be basically like maintained, and if some other teams require something similar, they can be reused. And they are basically selling this kind of like products to basically Domino's, to Ford, which are the really like Fortune like 500 companies.
So that's yeah, that's very interesting, especially in the AI space. I think there are a lot more tools that are required. I think even as companies are figuring out, but quickly they're getting into mainstream. The whole life cycle of AI tools is very different. There's data involved, there's all the annotation, there's models, and then there's all the logic and pipeline. So the conventional software engineering processes don't fit. I think there's a fantastic opportunity. Are there any other startups you come across that are in the enterprise space, like maybe in the conventional business sense, offering any business solutions that are doing something very different recently?
So basically, so this is a company called like Grammarly, and they basically exist in the whole range. So they have like a product which will basically help you like protect the mood of of basically any article or an email. And so they have that consumer business like which and have the enterprise like business as well. Like for example, I don't even know if Amazon is a customer for them, but I'm just taking an example. When an Amazon customer service guy responds to you on email, right? The company does not want the person to have like to respond to in a way that might sound angry, that even or might sound like a satire, or might be even basically be anything which might be downgrading the customer. So they would basically use a product like Grammarly, integrate that with their customer service tool, so that they can do like an emotion check and the motivation check on an email that has been returned to the customer.
So that's, I think those are the kind of tools that are coming up now. I mean, like recently there was another startup, I mean, that got acquired a few months back, but so they were into AI-based scheduling of meetings. Yep. So their sales assistance is a tool for sales, mostly for sales, but they can be used for even HR and other places where there are a lot of interviews or meetings fixed with outside stakeholders. So it's a bot that will just check the calendar. If there's no calendar, it knows the principle. If I'm fixing meeting, it has access to my calendar, and it has access to all my preferences. And then if I'm fixing a meeting, it will do the email exchanges to work. Okay, that's why I don't know, shall we meet Thursday? The other person say, no, Thursday I have a meeting. Can we do Thursday afternoon? So you'll say, no, afternoon. So the bot will do the communication for you. Now this is a SaaS product. It knows the enterprise. You can set up enterprise rules. You can set up who all are the ones that need meetings. You can sit there, and then you have your list of employees, access to the calendar. So it has an enterprise view. It's a bot that schedules meetings. That's all it does. Schedules meetings. But for sales, it's a big problem. For sales, we have meetings throughout the day, and a lot of mails go back and forth just to schedule those meetings. So this is a bot. You CC the bot in the first mail, and then the bot will respond after that and fix the time. And then also add it to your calendar and send a meeting invite. I think there's a very, very interesting tools possible. I mean, enterprise SaaS is no more about just the operations, HR, finance, like that, sales, and I think those are all first order problems very, very well solved. Now the next order problems are being solved for the enterprise, which is things like this, like Grammarly and Schedule. A very interesting product coming up. Now, here at the end of the day, a product is a product, a customer is a customer. Now, why is it often considered that like sales for enterprise SaaS is not easy? That you hear it often from startups. That's a very common refrain that you hear often. What makes it?
So basically, like if you're like, for example, we were taking the example of Sociality, in which we are selling to an influencer. Now what really happens in that case, there's one decision maker, right? So that way, if you're able to convince that guy, you're done, and that guy does not really report to anybody else. Usually in an SME company, it's usually like the founder who's making the decision, and nobody's going to come and question that decision. For an enterprise, like for an enterprise solution, it's the technical term used for that is basically like a group buying. So there are multiple people who need to come to a conclusion to make that sales happen. And one thing which basically like founder like fail to understand sometimes is that each one of them have a very different like motivation, right? So listen, yeah.
No, I was going to say like now this is similar even for an on-prem product, right? Even if I say conventional enterprise product which is sold as a licensed product on-prem.
Exactly.
These are things. Beyond these, are there some challenges which is specific just to the fact that it is being a SaaS sold in a SaaS model or a subscription model? Are there additional challenges?
So basically now, because of the regulations which various countries have, there's a lot of like issues around like security and data privacy, right? On an on-prem like model, you had a software, you deployed it on a customer's data center and you were done with it, right? Over here, there are these extra layers of like data privacy that that the data of my Europe customers need to stay in Europe. Then there are things like the company needs to ensure that you don't you don't get hacked. I feel like for a product like I worked with like Facebook as the enterprise, and their security reviews is like extremely challenging, because they don't want to get a bad name that, oh, I use this startup's like product and I basically they got hacked and my data got leaked, because like not all companies have a good reputation in the market, and they want to like protect that reputation. So basically, so they might have asked you to do these security reviews, and whatever you're trying, and what you're trying to establish is basically like trust. So because sales at the end of the day is all about trust, whether it's an enterprise or you just going and trying to buy like your next car.
So data residency and some of the security related, privacy related regulations, and those are some things to keep in mind when they look at the sales process. But other than those, the way you identify the target segment, the way you identify the value proposition and such, would there be any different? I know there are opportunities because in the SaaS model, evaluations become very easy. You can quickly set up an evaluation. You can have, right? So those things, of course, are easier in a SaaS model. But are there any additional opportunities or challenges in, say, identifying target segments, value proposition, go to market?
So there, like from the proper mind, there are like a few things you need to like consider, because there's some enterprises and basically some governments who basically would say that we would never host your SaaS product in your data center. So basically, if you're trying to sell to the US government, you basically need to have its own. You need to run your own like special data center, which is located in US to basically to be able to sell them. So that's like one part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is that usually these companies would want you to integrate with other products they have. So they might be using like AD to basically like manage their stuff. They might be using like a single sign-on sort of like product. So those are other things you will have to integrate with as well. On the contrary side, there are a few like benefits as well. Number one is that because you are a SaaS product, what you can do is that you can, it's a bit easier to give them like a POC. It's like, let me give you this like 50 accounts for free for like maybe like a quarter. You run those and they say you experience the like product yourself. If you're doing some customizations, sometimes the way the SaaS product is built out, it's easier, and you can actually and you can show the value to the like customer like much faster.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, a mail campaign, if you're doing a marketing campaign for lead generation, the campaign could include a link for a very customized demo.
Yeah.
That should be clicked. It will be a demo where they can experience it in their context, as though seeming like it's their company, their name. And absolutely, I think that whole evaluation process is one super opportunity in the whole enterprise app space. Now, are there any specific sales strategies you can think of, like somebody in the enterprise app could adopt? I mean, this is a challenge. I think like the SaaS model makes it easier for somebody to build, right? You don't need to worry about large computers and like all that stuff, and there are all the tools and like cloud-based services available. So it's quick to build a product which is enterprise grade for enterprises. But the fact that the team is a small team and probably not so connected makes it very easier to build. But the agility is the strength, and the same also becomes the weakness because they're not connected to the industry. And so are there any specific sales strategies like startups? I mean, some startups come with very strong pedigree connections to their domain. So for them, it's a little easier because they know the domain very well, they're connected. But if it's a pure tech startup with no domain connections, just discover the opportunity and build the solution. What can their sales strategy be? What should their sales strategy be?
So I think there are like 3 hacks they can do. Number one is basically they can always do like a co-sell, and many of these bigger companies would basically have that. So like for example, if they're deployed completely on AWS has like a co-selling like program, like where you will use the partnerships, partnerships like which are like being built by AWS already, and their sales teams will basically help you approach the enterprises. Number one. Number two is basically like where you can use your angel funds or your basically your VCs, like because your like for example like in Succeed we have like people who are working at Apple, the people who are like working at Amazon, and whenever you need this, so I can talk about the sales process as well in a different question, but like for a startup, you need like a champion in that company. So your angel investors could be your champions. Additionally, if you're working with like a bigger VC firm, they might have invested in multiple other enterprise SaaS companies which have those partnerships already. So that will help you like open like a few new doors as well. And the third one is basically so there are some really good enterprise SaaS sales coaches out there. Like get in touch with them, and they will basically help you like streamline your sales process as well.
I think those 3. I think they're definitely an opportunity available for startups because they work with the likes of Amazon, Google on one side, the angel investors and VCs on the other side. So there's an avenue that they should leverage. Now, the whole, if you look at a startup that is not funded, so often funding happens after they won the first few customers, right? So if a startup is not funded, what are some specific challenges or struggles in getting those first few customers? The enterprise SaaS, there's a paradox, right? It's a contradiction of sorts. You have to get to the big boys, right? Like you said, Fortune 1000, even Fortune 5000, they're very large companies. Fortune 1000 in India are large companies. Even if you look at this Indian top 1000 or even top 5000. Now, a small team, while they can build a solution, but how do they get access to this? They're funded, so they don't have the likes of the angels or VCs to help them. What are some of the other hacks or strategies they could adopt to get the first few customers, after which the other doors will open?
So again, three different ways I can think of. Number one is basically like use your own network. Go to like suppose they built out an HR solution, right? So go to an HR conference. Over there, you try to build the network. If you have some network in your previous like from your previous company, use that. Number two would be to basically would be to kind of lost the train of my thought. Yeah.
You said conferences and trade shows. That's one avenue.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, number one is basically your trade shows and your conferences. Number two is basically like finding somebody in your network like whom you might know already. And number three is basically doing like working again, maybe with a coach or maybe somebody who has been in the business for quite some time, and then doing like a very targeted like what do you call like sales pitch. So identifying who are the decision makers, what problems do they have, and how your product can solve that. And that way, if you can show like value in your like first email or your like your first conversation, that will also create a lot of difference.
So any examples come to your mind how they won their first customers? Any startups that you have come across recently? Anything creative in how they found their first customers? Enterprise startups.
So I know like a security company who was basically like they're basically like did a like an ML based tool for I'm not getting the name from the top of my head, but so they had done like an ML security tool like for companies to do their like code reviews. So it will do like a security code reviews, find security bugs. Now their first customer was like Microsoft, because the founders were all the founders were ex-Microsoft. So they were using their own connections to basically like reach the team. And once they had like Microsoft as like a customer, selling to other companies was much easier. The number one. Number two, so the way basically like many other companies grow, like for example like Grammarly, right? What they did was they basically were an SME like product, and they basically built their brand as an SME like product. Only when they were like well known and they had like basically like a few hundred thousand like paying users, did they go for the enterprise customers, because that's for something which basically gives them a little bit of credibility.
Mm-hmm. So now on the other side, I mean, like on one side, yes, it's very difficult to get a customer, especially early customers. Now on the other side, often customers come asking for something which you don't have.
Yep.
Right? They say, yes, I like it, but you know what, I want this also.
Yep.
Now, does SaaS make it easier to service such leads? Because like you win a customer, I mean, it's not your regular product, but what they want, maybe it's custom one-off, or maybe it is generic, but you can build it still. So does SaaS make it easier to deliver on such or close such openings, some such possibilities where you need to make some changes to your product to win it?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in your initial stage, right, you're trying to get your like first maybe 10 customers, enterprise customers, just say yes. Just say yes, because that logo is going to drive your like future sales, right? But now there are ways you can be like smarter about it. Is that like the way you basically negotiate that is that I'm going to like build this for you. Can you basically like sign a like a purchase order before I build it for you? Right? Let's do our, or basically people do something. So we basically have our own implementation team, which will do all these modifications for you, and that might be like and that's actually very common for Indian SaaS companies, that they have an in-house implementation team. So they say that, okay, so they're going to like work on this, and this is going to charge you extra, and this is how much it's that going to be. So and even if you're like first customer, you can say that because we are like building this, we want some like an advance commitment or advance like payment. So what you primarily want them, what you primarily want that to happen is that you want to stop them from talking to your competitors. And once they have made that like financial commitment, the chances of that happening like would get lower.
I think true. I mean, it's not only it's easier to make changes because it's all hosted in your server. There's no deployment and all that. Like you don't have to deal with no coordination. You can do it very quickly and then give them a new URL. They should be able to see the functionality you built. And then also, like you said, it helps discover possibilities. When new customers come, at the end of the day, like your product should connect to a market. You build for a market. The market says, I need something else. If you modify your product, you're going to connect to that new market. So it makes sense to. It's a discovery process also. And it makes it easier to discover alternate markets because it can quickly explore. So I think that's an interesting positive of, but not many explore it that way. I mean, there's an opportunity these SaaS companies have, but they don't look at it that way. They're still a little rigid about doing this. They're hesitant to do this.
Yeah. So exactly. So if you're like a startup, right? I think it's fairly important to go after the. It's a hack. It's not a rule that you go after like a niche market, like because the bigger players would not do the customization for your customer. Like like I know the name of the company. I know the name. There's an HR tool like very famous like right out of Hyderabad, right? And those guys were like went after the Indian like pharma like market first. So they had like Dr. Reddy's as their customer, Apollo as their like customer, like because these companies sometimes feel that the bigger tools, HR tools, don't really like match their requirements. And this modern, more agile startup is able to do that like way like faster. So once you have those logos in your like portfolio, then you can start like expanding to other portfolios.
I think too. I think it makes sense, much easier to win customers if you're willing to customize. Because they'll always, I mean, one of the reasons why Dr. Reddy's might have gone with the startup is because like they gave them what they wanted. A larger company may not do it, but the agility that a SaaS model startup has, larger companies almost impossible to have that agility. So that's definitely a strength. So Sugandh, we hit the half-hour mark. So thank you so much, Sugandh, and these were some amazing observations and thoughts you shared. Thank you so much. And I think we will also record this and put it up there as a learning module also for a startup, because all this is, the series is aimed at very, very early stage startups, early revenue or pre-revenue startups, angel stage, pre-angel stage startups. So these are all small pieces of nuggets of wisdom that will help these startups. So thanks so much for spending the time and sharing all the insights. So
the last thing I would like to say, and I'm sorry you're done, but I think what is very, very critical for early stage startups to understand is that the CEO needs to drive the sales. Many times I've come up across like through Succeed where the CEO is planning on getting somebody else to drive the sales, and unless you actually reach a certain point, you actually have because the CEO needs to establish the trust and that he knows the market very well. Only then he will be able to crack that market.
No, absolutely. I think no two ways around it. A CEO, one of the founders, and the founder that is looking at the product strategy is the one that should be selling. Like it's most likely the CEO that's doing it. I think like this is all interconnected. You have your product strategy, you have your product market strategy, right? And you have your marketing. They're all kind of linked. And one person that knows all of this is the CEO. And when you talk to a customer, you have to make a decision on the feed, saying like, yes, I know I can change this. I will build this and get back to you in 2 weeks. You can't say I will go check with my team and come back. Then you lost the interest, right? That agility is the strength, and for the agility to be realized, the decision maker should be there. And also they have a good sense of the market, of the product, like of the whole overall strategy, overall direction. They will be very aware of it, so they can quickly decide what is possible, not possible, does it make sense, not make sense. Now, absolutely. I think because the sales is always a discovery process. You discover new opportunities, but early stage sales is completely discovery process. You might think I can sell like washing machines, but then market tells you like they want plastic. They use it for plastic. Now, such things you discover, you have to keep your eyes and minds and ears open. So absolutely, CEOs, and I don't think anybody else can sell in the early stages. So Sugan, thank you so much. Thanks for the time, and have a great day.